It is not uncommon for me to be knocking on people's doors who are retired from the textile industry and being like, hey, you guys like want to get me involved? Like, I'm done with weaving and knitting. Like, I'm tired of like aesthetics. I'm like, no, it's a textile revolution, guys. Like,
Madison, thank you so much for joining us. I'm glad to have you on. Yesterday you were a hoot, and I was glad I got to introduce you a little bit. And so I want to dive in a little more and hear about who you are and what you do. And so people that are listening, you own a hemp mill in North Carolina, and you are manufacturing textiles, fabric,
correct.
Right?
Yes, yep. So I'm the CEO of Hemp Mills. We started the first hemp weaving and knitting mill about 1.5 years ago. We're just starting getting some yarn spinning and things like that, but it's been a wild ride for sure. Yeah, I was just developing a boxing product in the boxing gym about 2 years ago, and my boxing hand wraps kept ripping. So I was like, I just took them into the lab because of my background in genetic modification of plants, and I found out they're all cotton. And I was like, well, and I got in touch with a bunch of like professional boxers. Like, there has to be a better solution. Like, why are these things so terrible? I started researching fibers. I'm doing some different fiber blends, and it turns out hemp is the best fiber for like athletic apparel and for wear and for antibacterial. So then, I reached out to like every mill internationally. I went to a bunch of universities and things like that, and nobody knew how to weave or work with or innovate with hemp. So the decision was to start America's first hemp weaving or knitting mill, or like abandon the project. So we just went ahead and took it on. It's been quite a ride ever since then.
Okay, so I hear from a lot of people, and this is my passion. People that know me know this is my passion. But what are some challenges that you experienced and were able to overcome as you did this? Because when I start talking to people and I say, well, I'm in the hemp industry, or I'm really passionate about manufacturing hemp, they say, oh, you smoke? Or, oh, you take CBD? It's completely different. I mean, it really comes down to education, Madison. So what have you done to really grow and get to where you're at?
Yeah, so actually when we first started, I moved out to North Carolina because that's where hi John, so that's where the whole textile industry is. North Carolina, I mean, we were the head of the cotton industrial revolution over here. So I moved out to North Carolina about 1.5 years ago and brought on all the other textile engineers that came out of cotton or synthetics and were really passionate about it. So it's kind of finding the right people and then we had to learn how to work with him. So it was 8 months of intensive R&D that we were not expecting. We started off with some really, really terrible yarn here. I'll show you. This is the yarn we actually started weaving with. You can see it's very hairy. So I was not expecting to have to innovate the process of wet spinning hemp yarn in order to get it through the looms refurbished to get hemp through that. So I was not expecting to have to innovate the yarn, renovate the machines, and everything like that. Yeah.
Okay, so when after you've gotten to where you are now, kind of tell me what you see moving forward, and where are you at as far as production, and what do you see most? This is a lot of questions. I have a tendency to do this, but you go ahead and then I'll finish my question. I always forget.
Go ahead. I was right now. Okay, so right now we're at North Carolina. North Carolina, we still have all the textile engineers here still. A lot of them are just starting to retire, things like that. These textile engineers are they hold all the industry secrets on how to weave and knit in America. So we're bringing some people who just retired and who are out of mills, who closed down their mill because they're over, and we kind of re-energize them on. We're like, hey, we need to keep this intelligence in America. It's like an industrial revolution. So we're bringing on younger kids. Our weaving mill and knitting mill is actually sober. We work with kids from rehab and stuff like that, ironically enough, doing hemp. So awesome. So we're able to help a lot of people there. We're opening up a facility in Haw River. So that's going to create about 16 jobs. Most of the jobs are being created by mills that have shut down because they were doing synthetics and things like that. They got ran out of business. Yeah, we're able to create jobs for people who lost their jobs due to outsourcing and things like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what type of products are you guys looking at creating in the near future?
Yeah, so we've kind of already created it here. We're working on, this is like a denim. We've worked on this. It's absolutely gorgeous, 100% hemp. We're really proud of that. We just worked on a fabric for PPE. So it has 3% spandex, 55% hemp, 45% organic cotton. It has amazing stretch. So that'll give you what's kind of talking about with Mandy, that it's natural, antibacterial, antifungal for people who are making masks and really have a low carbon footprint with their mask production. And then we have all kinds of stuff. We have some amazing hemp socks. We work with some smaller mills who kind of ran out of business. and who are looking to bring some industry. And so we're able to go into those mills that would be otherwise closed down and be like, hey, we have like this new yarn that we're processing, and like kind of reinvigorate them, which is definitely my passion, is bringing jobs back in, and yeah, American manufacturing.
So I'm very interested in this because you've gone in and helped other small mills, people get started again. Yeah. Is that going to be your future model where you're going to go help people? Because there's a lot of need out in the West and the Midwest for exactly what you're doing. Is there opportunity for people to work with you?
100%. Yeah, we're not looking to like own the monopoly on hemp weaving. That's why we're setting up this weaving facility. We're looking to bring the industry back. And America's gonna like have a 5-year chance with hemp textiles. Like the industry's really segregated right now for textiles. Everybody's competing, but we're all kind of coming together. Like yesterday, I went to the mill. It was so adorable. It was the grandfather started about like 70 years ago. They're kind of going under. The mill was right behind their little farmhouse. There's like dogs and kids everywhere. It's absolutely amazing. We're able to go in there and say, hey, I know you guys used to like manufacture for Columbia stuff. We don't have a good manufacturing. We're able to go in and like bring this whole new energy and just like see the grandfather come out and it all comes to life. That's one of our passions for sure.
What's the difference in manufacturing or a mill that's using cotton compared to hemp?
For knitting and weaving.
Okay. What does that look like? I get asked that all the time. Well, why aren't we just using hemp? If hemp has all these great properties, how come we're not just using it?
Yeah, well, sometimes we have to put like different ceramic discs on the machines and stuff like that. There's a little bit of a different setup. And people are just kind of like a little afraid to work with him because it does have like a lot of off-put and flub on the machine. So we do kind of have to go in and kind of show them how to work with hemp yarn. But my engineers are able to go in and like kind of teach these people who are used to working with like cotton and synthetics, like, look, we can do this with hemp. There's going to be like more finishing involved, but we know how to do all that. So it's not a big difference, especially since we have like the yarn engineered so gorgeously that it can go through the looms and everything. And it's amazing just to see these people's faces like light up, like, oh my gosh, you mean like we're going to make it? Like, we're like, yeah, we'll give it our best shot here.
Okay, so I've got a really good question here from Chris. Chris said, how do you source your materials? Do you use forward contracts? Do you tell them genetics that you need? And do you use specific requirements for your fiber?
Yeah, so there's a huge problem going on right now. Just importing hemp fabric. It's actually not real hemp coming back. It's cotton and flax. And this happened to me with the first yarn we started bringing in. So because of my background in genetics, we actually do microscopy and antimicrobial. So we do 2 steps. So microscopy tells us it's a short staple natural fiber, but it's cotton. We also do a burn test. We do a lot of smelling yarn and fabrics. Yeah, burn test, if it just melts, Chris, on fabrics or yarn, you can tell it is a synthetic. Cotton burns different, has a different smell than hemp. And yeah, so we do antimicroscopy, antibacterial. The antibacterial, Mandy, tells us if it's like alive. So we want like a 45% resistance against staphylococcus and at least 35% E. coli in our 100% hemp yarn, or we're not even going to touch it. Well, I guess weave it.
Okay. So when we talk right now, you're buying the hemp fiber that's already been broken down.
Correct.
Right? So, you're not buying hemp from your farmers. You're buying hemp from a manufacturing facility that's broken it down and sent you based on your specs that you're looking for. I think this is really important because I think this is a piece that has to be, installed in the United States and around these mills so that you can keep our supply chains within the United States. And it goes back to where I look at value labor and education and economic development, right? We're now able to keep our product in the United States, American made, start to finish.
Yeah. It makes a great cover crop. So we're working with farmers, thousands of acres, giving them a way to make more money in off season. That's why we're working on opening up this in the United States. We don't have to be importing yarn from Romania and Spain and things like that. We just have it all here. That's the goal.
So Chris had made a comment, but I wanted to ask you this. So he just wanted to clarify here. So you are buying the yarn in bulk, but not the raw materials. Is there a future where you guys would expand so that you can take the raw materials and then manufacture it into what you need it to be?
Yeah, And then I saw a comment about decortication facilities. There are decortication facilities in North Carolina, Utah, Northern California, New York. Where we're looking at opening these spinning facilities.
Wait. Did I just hear you say there's a decortication facility in Utah?
Yeah, there's some hemp processors. Yeah, but they're in Utah. All they have is like a hay baler. So they're putting it through like a hay baler, and they're putting it in bales. So that can go into animal bedding right now, Mandy. But it's
right.
It's like a hay baler that they have like rigged up to process. Yes. Yeah, for like animals.
I thought you were telling me something, and I almost had a heart attack. I was like, I have to hunt these people down. Where are they?
Yeah, okay. But So the facilities, they're starting to open up as far as people we can work with to be able to spin the yarn. Yeah, but right now we're importing the yarn. It's not something we want to do. So we first learned out how do we weave and knit hemp. We had to learn how to do that in America and train all our people, and it was a really intense process. Now we're like, okay. So I brought on the people, and now we're like, we're going to spin hemp and like be able to buy this fiber from the farmers at a higher rate. That they're selling it for about 60 cents a pound now. What if we can give them $2.30 a pound or something like that if it is going to be induced in yarn? So that's what we're looking to do.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about your expansion, and just to make clear that your end goal really is to bring this all in-house, right? But for people that don't know, our textiles industry pretty much has died off out of North Carolina. And so this is a big movement that you've made. And we talk about jobs. 16 jobs is a lot for these facilities.
Yeah, and these are people who are unemployment now because textiles was their life, and when their mill shuts down, it just kind of like takes the life out of everybody. So yeah, so the knitting facility, we already have about 10 employees. We have some people in sobriety. We train all these younger kids with the engineers who have retired, so we make sure that we're keeping this intelligence going on for generations. So yeah,
I'm dang excited.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to a little bit of your professional expertise, because you studied plant genetics.
Yes.
Are you looking at doing any genetics with the plant to improve on the hemp fiber?
Are we looking about, I'm sorry, can you cut out for a second? Are we looking about?
I think our bandwidth is weak because we keep flipping out, and I don't know if it's better if what we can do. John, do you have any suggestions?
That's just what StreamYard does. Only one person can talk at a time. Otherwise, the microphone will be. No, you're fine. You're absolutely fine. When two people talk, what it'll do is it'll mute one while it'll play the other. So you're good. Ryan, ask your question, and Madison, you can go again.
So let me ask this again, because your history, I shouldn't say your history, your schooling background is plant genetics.
Yeah.
With what you're doing with your company here, are you looking at doing any plant genetics to improve on the hemp fiber?
Yeah, well, the great thing about hemp is that it's a weed, and as it is, we don't have to add in plant genetics or really any hemp breeding. There's some strains that are coming in from Ireland, but there's no really. It is called a weed for a reason. It grows in areas
anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah, so there's no really genetics that are needed, which is the glory about the hemp plant. So as far as my genetics, I'm probably not going to get in the lab with the hemp plants. It's pretty much ready to go as long as we can set up the processing post. In North Carolina, they're growing a couple strains that are working right now. It's about a 14-foot long stalk, extremely narrow. The farmers we just kind of have to go in and teach them how to ret it and put some microbial agents on it. So in retting, it's like having it sit in water, microbial, so it kind of breaks down, turns a little bit green, then we can put it through the spinning equipment without it having any.
Can you explain that piece? I think that this is really fascinating, and understanding the difference, because I dove in for about 6 months to learn the extraction process, and this is totally different.
Oh, so you can teach me, Mandy.
There you go.
Yeah, so retting, currently when they're pulling the hemp for like CBD and other like oil processing and animal bedding, they just take the stalk out and do some other things they're not involved with. But what they're doing in like Romania and Spain, like the main hemp processing facilities, is you have to ret it. So retting is when you pull the stalk, you just stack it, and it can be like 15 feet high, and you sprinkle some like microbial agents on it, like I don't want to say like mushroom powder, but it's some microbial agents to kind of break it down. And then it sits in the field. It's no more production. They don't need the facility. It just sits in the field for about 3 weeks, and then they would put it to the decorticator, which is you can kind of like rig up like a hay baler just to process it through, but it just has to ret. It's not expensive for farmers. It can sit. sit on their property. It just has to wet and kind of soak so we can put it through the spinning facility.
It breaks it down, basically. It decomposes it all on its own. And of course, it depends on what you're taking the stock apart for, right? And I think that if we can put a facility in where we're pulling every single piece of that, there's a lot of product that can be made from that stock.
Mandy. Yeah, and we can even there's the equipment already in America, even for the spinning facility. I mean, we use all old equipment. I'm like scraping rust off mainly when we retrofit all old equipment, put new ceramic discs on it, which I love too, because we're not like manufacturing a bunch of new equipment and metal and things like that. But there's the equipment already ready that we can put on the farmers' properties so they can wet this and then decorticate it on site. And we're talking like a 3,000 for them to be able to red it and produce it for fiber and get more per yard.
Well, okay. So tell me about you touched on this just a little bit, and this is something that I am pretty passionate about on our supply chains. The value of buying and knowing where your supply chain is, and touch on some of the things that you have found as you've been in this and ran tests on other products that are labeled as 100% hemp or labeled as an antimicrobial hemp product. What are things that we as consumers need to be aware of?
Yeah, Mandy. So kind of the example what happens is the client will send us a sample of like their hemp fabric. They're like, hey, I'm buying this from China. I really am passionate about U.S. manufacturing, and I want you guys to make this for me. Can you make it this exact composition? Then I kind of get on a phone call with them. I'm like, hey, so we put this through the lab. We did the burn test, and this is actually 50% polyester, 50% cotton. And these business people who are distributing are just like, they are shocked. They're absolutely devastated. Like, what do you mean? I've been selling fake hemp fabric. So I think the consumer just needs to be aware where you're sourcing it from. If business people that are using hemp fabric are super passionate about using real hemp, and just to make sure you're getting it from people who are testing their hemp fiber and who are just as passionate about you.
And why? Tell me why, for listeners that don't know. And again, I think people get tired of me shoving it down their throat as to why they should use hemp fabric. But why, Madison? What's the value to a hemp-based product versus a polyester or cotton product?
Yeah, so hemp is 8 times stronger. It's 4 times more moisture wicking. It uses 50% less water to grow than cotton. Cotton, which was shocking me when I first started, is responsible for like 45% of the global pesticide use. Like when you go to the farmer's market or the grocery store and you're checking if it's like organic, like certified organic on your apple, your clothes are actually coated in pesticides and insecticides so much more than a non-organic apple. So I think I got off topic with the organic apple, but
no, that's what you put it into perspective for us. We can sit here and talk about, it's antimicrobial, but so what, right? What's the value? Why should I grow it?
Got it. Yes, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You're okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, you should go. I mean, you get a lot more per acre. It uses no pesticides, no insecticides, 4 times less water than cotton uses. So, and you can also use some water that has some saline in it as well, which my background is desalinization of plants. So I'm super passionate about that. People can grow this on like kind of lands that are near the ocean that have some salt water, and hemp can grow in that. So these farmlands that are ruined by salinization, they can now grow hemp in that and have a livelihood for their family.
Okay. I kind of touched on this yesterday in our meeting too, the devastation that we're seeing in Iowa, with the corn farms and soybeans and eggs. Where do you see hemp falling into a solution, not just for that, but on the big scale, and maybe not just for textiles, but where on the big scale do you see hemp going?
Hemp production per acre is, substantial. You're getting 3 times more production per acre than cotton alone. There's a huge supply chain for like industrial use for hemp and with animal bedding. So I see this giving American farmers a way to like make money and contribute back to our economy, especially if these products are going back into U.S. businesses and U.S. entrepreneurs who are really passionate about using true hemp textiles. Not only helps the farmers, but it helps like American small business owners and entrepreneurs to really know their supply chain, know their farmers. Let's like farm to table, let's do like farm to textiles or farm to fabrics. So you can really know your hemp farmer, know your hemp business owner, and things like that. That's where we want it to go.
I want to ask you something here. Just looking on your website, I wanted you to just teach us a little bit. let's make an argument here for hemp versus synthetics. You talked a lot about hemp versus cotton, but how about hemp versus synthetics?
Yeah, so synthetics actually, they're based, so the price of synthetic fabrics and synthetic yarn actually deviates with crude oil because it's made out of crude oil. So synthetics are made with thousands of harmful chemicals, some being linked to breast cancer. They're man-made. They're made with petroleum base, so they're really bad for the environment, have a large carbon footprint. They're responsible for 20% of the world's water pollution. So those synthetic fabrics, just like how plastic is floating in our ocean, these synthetic fabrics, I'm not synthetic, the synthetic fabrics do not break down. So they're just floating in our ocean, contributing to that. And also they hold bacteria so they don't breathe. They cause sweat to be trapped. It breaks my heart when I see like baby diapers or baby fabrics be made with synthetics and cotton, because that's holding bacteria, like contributing to diaper rash and things like that. I want to be educated on like, hey, you can put healthier fabrics on your kids and have a healthier lifestyle by just converting over to real natural fabrics.
Okay, so you touched on this again, back to PPE, right? You say antimicrobial and it's not holding bacteria. I've read a lot of articles lately about young kids, having lung infections because they're wearing these masks that the more I'm educated, the virus is real and the mask is helping. Right? That's what I'm seeing. It's an argument. I don't know facts. I'm not the scientist. I know this is a touchy subject for everybody, but to the mask, if we're being mandated or if masks are being worn and these kids are wearing masks that are synthetic fabrics and it's holding the virus in or growing bacteria and now they're inhaling it, that mask is the dirtiest part of anything that they're touching, right? Or the most contagious. It's what's spreading the most.
100%.
How does hemp-based PPE help, and how would it really help on our supply chains to protect our kids and our elderly and us as we're going through this pandemic?
Yeah, Mandy. So what I can speak on and what we do know is that hemp and cotton it's organic, 55% and 45% cotton. You won't be breathing in those sulfates and chemicals and dyes that are on these masks. When people are wearing dyed masks, you're breathing in like a handful of chemicals all the time. So I was just at our finishing plant and they actually accidentally ran it with sulfates, which we only run it with salt water when we're doing. So we had to pull the whole production. It is super imperative to us that there's absolutely no sulfates at all in our fabric, that you're not breathing in, as well as all the bacteria that's going on, because hemp's antifungal, antibacterial, that you're not breathing in chemicals, which is really passionate. That's on your face all day. I don't have kids, but I know people do not want their kids breathing in the chemicals in our fabrics because, there's so much more research that has to go on because, our body is more absorbent than any other, our skin's more absorbent than any other part of our body. So just what are we putting on our face? What are we putting on our body? And what are the real repercussions of that?
Well, and it's no different than us putting lotion on, right? We put a CBD oil or lotion on our skin because our skin absorbs it. Our skin is an organ, right? Yeah. It's no different than if you have a synthetic or a chemical ridden product, a shirt or backpack or clothes, or especially mask, right, over your face.
Yeah.
So where do you see most of your fabrics going to? Who are your biggest buyers? Where do you see product moving to?
Yeah, so a lot of our buyers are t-shirt manufacturers, brands that really care about what's in their fabric, which is, I think it's the more education that happens, the more brands care, but brands who care like, hey, is my cotton organic? Does it have sulfates in it? What was it dyed with? Was it dyed with earth dyes? Because you really have to dive down, just like my background in modification places, you have to dive down to every step of the supply chain and know everything your fabric's processed with, because even if these people are dyeing their fabric red or blue, the amount of chemicals that go into those dyes are huge. So we're going into jersey knit, athletic wear right now. We're kind of working on like an Under Armour lightweight t-shirt for certain technical use. Just brands and people who really care about what's in their fabric and what they're delivering their consumer, which I think American brands entrepreneurs really care about. So,
and take it even out of this, right? I hear a lot of times, people are less willing to get engaged and learn because it doesn't affect them. They don't see the effects of the polyesters or the chemicals. So when we go back to sustainability, they last longer, right? Our sheets are going to last longer. Our clothing is going to last longer. I'm safer if we're battling something, and I listened to a
and UV resistance, Mandy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Ryan, go ahead, and then I've got a few comments I want to share, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, good. No, that's fine. So I wanted to ask you, because earlier you showed us a few of the products that you have currently, right? Right now you are mixing those with hemp and some synthetics, if I recall that correct.
Yes.
Are you looking to do 100% hemp? Is there a reason why you would have to blend it in with some synthetics? Does it depend on the type of product that you're making? Can you just break that down a little bit as to where you would do 100% hemp and where you would actually need to combine it with silk or something else?
Yeah, Ryan. So when we do use synthetics, we use synthetics like Rowika spandex. Rowika spandex was developed to actually dissolve and have a 100% biodegradable. So when we do use synthetics, we make sure that we're tracking the supply chain. We're in touch with the manufacturer. We make sure that it's still going to be biodegradable. We keep the synthetics really low, about 5% or lower, just to add some performance quality to the fabric so we can get more brands adapting over to hemp. 100% natural hemp, Ryan, it feels like hemp. It's a little bit scratchy. It's very strong, but there's a great industry for like sheets, what Mandy was saying, and denim and stuff like that to do 100% hemp in those kind of canvas products.
Right.
What was your other question? I apologize.
I think that answered it.
Okay.
I don't know my other question.
Yeah.
So, but we have a lot of comments here. And Mandy, I know you were going to address some of these because there's a couple of questions and a couple of comments here.
Yeah.
Curious about how hemp fiber is being processed, if it's similar to flax.
Yeah. So hemp fiber is, go ahead.
I was just reading the question. And can it be processed?
And spun the same way?
Yeah. So it can. So what we're battling right now as far as hemp fiber processing is extremely water intensive, about 4 times more than flax. So we're developing a water recycling, thanks to my agricultural background. It just kind of take the water recycling shapes in agriculture, put it on a wet processing machine, and help with that water overseas in Europe. Just let it sit in like a bath of water, like a pond. Obviously, it's not quite ideal for American manufacturing. So because of the high water intake to wet process hemp, which is just more water intensive, so you have to develop water reprocessing tanks to go on the machine, which is definitely not anything that's possible.
Comment from Justin. Justin's got a couple of comments, and no, Justin, I don't think that you're weird. But ironically, the USDA agreed that the value of hemp textiles back in 1942, hemp for victory, and posted a video. For those of you that haven't watched the video, check it out. It's a cool just history about hemp. Another comment from David that they've got a group that are using hemp to replace fiberglass and graphite in snowboards, surfboards, and bike frames. I also saw he made a comment that for R&D in hemp fiber instead of Kevlar for vests.
That's interesting, yeah.
I've heard that quite a bit, actually, or from somebody else, that the passion to be able to, it was from Langdon over in Australia, to be able to replace vests for their police force and their military.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Pick me. So I wanted to ask Madison. Madison, obviously, you're so obviously passionate about this, and it's so awesome to hear all that and see all that. You've probably got an eye for some of the innovative next generation products that are going to be on the market here in the future, or some of those things. What are some of the innovative products that you see hemp really infiltrating into our markets, and some of the things you're most excited about? I mean, obviously, your products, but what other things do you know are coming down the pipeline that are going to be next gen and innovative that you just are super excited about?
Yeah, so I definitely see hemp being used in space, some of the space applications as far as the fiberglass kind of what they're talking about. We've had some people, we help a lot of people source like small hemp particles and stuff for different R&D projects. We do see some people working on it in space, which is absolutely incredible. The natural antimicrobial, antifungal properties do great in space because the vacuum in space, there's no coating, so it can't be blown off. There's no antimicrobial and antifungal properties, which is absolutely amazing. It's just natural. So yeah, we see some cool things in space. I'm just really excited about hemp giving farmers an industry to kind of combat on it. The low water uptake helps bring California farmers to an amazing opportunity to create an industry. That's kind of what I'm really excited about, is working with the farmers and just just making it capable for all these American entrepreneurs and businesses able to use hemp, because we'll be sourcing it from the U.S. and kind of know all the components that we're buying it from.
So,
That's awesome.
question. He wants to know, is he weird for wanting a hemp business suit made out of hemp? And I say, heck no. I want one too.
Yeah, it's a great idea. This hemp canvas would make a great business suit. Yeah, this looks wrinkled just because I've had it in a bag, but yeah, it's anti-wrinkle. I think a hemp business suit would do fantastic out of hemp. You should go for it. That's a great idea. 100%. Yeah, and hemp dyes better than any other because it's really water absorbent. It's 4 times more water absorbent than cotton. It is the most dye-friendly fabric, which is what brands and manufacturers love. It's going to hold your colors. So what people don't know is they hear that hemp's really hard to work with. The fabric's not dyeable. No, it's really dyeable and hold color. So your denim, some of the first Levi's jeans were actually made out of hemp. So it's going to hold that color of denim better than cotton and really give brands and manufacturers an up on quality.
Okay, so I'm not sure if we touched on this earlier when we were talking about where big product is moving to or where you see a lot of it going.
So what the big brands, why we're not working with all the big brands yet is there's a thing called the SAC, which is Sustainable Apparel Coalition, the big index. They want to see the yarn processing coming from America and don't have the carbon footprint of importing yarn, which is exactly what we agreed with. So the big brands, big manufacturers want to see the hemp processing plants next to the people who are making the hemp surfboard, possibly, or have them close to the farms, the decorticating plan. Let's build these businesses around where the processing plants are and kind of, have a little, I don't want to say village, but the manufacturers close to the processing plants like they're doing in Spain or Europe with other hemp. So yeah, the processors just needs to be closer to the manufacturers, and all these businesses are 100% possible. That's what the big brands want to see, is they want to see the hemp yarn coming from the American farmers.
Okay, I want to focus on that. You said something that the big brands want to see that, right? In order for us to bring this and really fulfill these chains, we need to have them on board, and we need to build these manufacturing facilities close to the processing facilities, right?
Yeah, Mandy, the big brands we've spoke with, they're very aware. They want to be sustainable, and the reason why they haven't switched over yet is because they're working with manufacturers overseas where their weaving and knitting mills are close to the spinning, so it makes 100%. So they're already moving to be sustainable. They really want to support American manufacturing, but they want to see us close to the farmers, close to decortication, and all of that. So yeah, the big brands are on board. They want to see the infrastructure close to the manufacturing.
So what do we need to do, Madison? What pieces do we collectively need to bring together to move that needle along, right? What do you see I can help with, or we as an association can really build or focus on?
Yeah, so right now we are in the middle of the race to be able to do some R&D for the spinning and the water recycling. We want to do a little bit of R&D to make sure we can wet process this and then do the cottonizing process based on the strains the hemp farmers are growing. And then hopefully our goal is by January to have a spinning facility set up in America, whether that's in Utah, North Carolina, New York, Northern California, wherever the kind of the strains are. Let's get the spinning mill set up as soon as possible. Our goal is January. And yeah, just get the rest of the chains of supply chain in order.
So, and Mandy, I want to add to this too, because I think there's a few things that need to be done here. And I think this is where AHA can really come into play as well, because we're talking about the supply chain here, which is definitely needed. The innovation is needed. Mm-hmm. And the more the supply chain is there, the more the innovation is there, demand is going to start going up. If I'm thinking as a farmer, though, and correct me if I'm wrong, I could be wrong on this, but I do believe that even hemp fiber is not backed with like farm aid. So if a farmer loses their crop, so for example, the big storm that just wiped out Ohio and all the corn and soybeans, if all that land was hemp, they would not be protected by the farm aid, where we know all those farmers that are going to be fine, right? The government's going to step in. They're going to subsidize all their losses. They're not going to, they're not going to lose out this year because they're going to be subsidized. Had that been a hemp farmer, this would be a very different story for them, and they would lose everything. I know just on my farm alone, we lost $50,000 in plants that we put in the field because a storm came through and wiped out the field. So firsthand, I understand that, and I get that. I think one of the things that does have to happen is we have to also look at the growers themselves and how to protect their interests in this as well and provide that same aid that other farmers get with corn, soybeans, potatoes, whatever the case, so that it's here too. Because I think you would have a lot of farmers that would jump on board knowing that there is that insurance backing them.
Maddie, do you want to add to that real quick? Because this is a topic that has to change, that AHA has to come together and focus on this need at the root of the problem, right?
Yeah, Ryan. I think the manufacturers, everybody involved with the AHA kind of brings in, whether it's a percentage of profit, and does a relief fund until the government passes something to do. One of the things that breaks my heart is when there's a little bit of fraud that goes on in the hemp industry and spinning. When people tell farmers to grow a bunch of hemp and then don't actually buy it. So I think AHA gets involved with like a relief fund to help farmers when that happens. Whether we donate a percentage of profits, which we would love to do, because we want to support farmers, and we just help them out with a relief fund to make sure hemp farmers are supported.
Well, and I think that, a big value add to an association or to a collective group, right, is knowing where the resources are. There are insurances for these crops. It's just knowing where they're at and who provides them, and what's available. But to everybody.
And what's the cost of those too?
Right. And maybe that's something, let's focus on that. I'll bring some insurance groups on, because I think this is something that insurances, companies, big brokers, banks, real estate, large real estate companies are starting to come into the hemp space, knowing that this isn't going away. There's so much more opportunity than the health and wellness side, that the real opportunity is in sustainability, the education, the economic development, bringing our supply chains, and the labor. I mean, the more and more that I read, Madison, this is a labor issue and bringing our workforce back to the United States.
Yeah, Mandy. I mean, it is not uncommon for me to be knocking on people's doors who are retired from the textile industry and being like, hey, you guys want to get me involved? Like, I'm done with weaving and knitting. Like, I'm tired of the synthetics. I'm like, no, it's a textile revolution, guys. Like, it truly is. It's like the processing of hemp is really like the processing of the congen. I believe it is that huge, and America has a shot to be a huge textile exporter domestically and internationally. We have a shot to compete. So yeah, Mandy, absolutely correctly. It's getting our workforce back in the mills, which they're always like, oh my gosh, this is sustainable. We're not lying about the fabrics. It's low water usage. So yeah, it's bringing that labor force back in and training the younger guys on how to weave. And people absolutely love learning to weave it. They love it. So
yeah, this is something else.
I have to make a comment real quick, because I'm just envisioning Madison bringing the fun back in the industry, because she's so passionate about it, where a lot of people are like, just waving yarn, whatever, And she's like all passionate and all excited about it. That's so cool. She's bringing the fun back to the industry.
I like it's a bit scratchy, but we can do this.
And so that reminds me of like when you buy a wool jacket or wool socks, who wants to wear that? I mean, come on, let's be honest. It's scratchy. It's annoying to wear. Nobody likes to wear it. And that's why we go after the cotton and the synthetics, because it's soft and it's more comfortable. But I love how you've been able to figure that out to make it smooth so it isn't scratchy.
Yeah, Ryan. And now there's technology and spinners all across America that are doing this is recycled cotton. So this is old cotton t-shirts that they chopped up, made into yarn. So to blend it, you need to blend hemp with recycled cotton, organic cotton, recycled polyester in order to make it soft to wear. It's 100% possible. And people, we're not the main innovator here. People have innovated how to recycle cotton and polyester, and we can blend that in to make this a fabric everybody can use.
Okay, so I've got a couple questions I want to bring up. From Justin, how close do you think that the hemp fiber industry is to fulfilling the demand for companies like Levi and Patagonia? And I've heard Patagonia's order is pretty big. And then running late, so we may have missed a few things. Justin, I'll cut you some slack this time. I'm glad to have you on.
Hey, Justin. Yeah, thanks for your question. So Patagonia is one of the companies involved with the SAC, Sustainable Apparel Coalition, and the Higgindes. They're extremely responsible, as well as Levi's, with sourcing. They're ready to go. They just want to see that we're using American fiber, and that the fiber processing and yarn processing is next to the weaving and knitting mills. They're an extremely responsible company. These big companies really want to see us using American yarn, American spun, and the weaving and knitting mills being next to that, so the carbon footprint is really low, because they have an impressive carbon footprint on their yarns and denims and knits. So yeah, this next step.
So I'd love to start bringing those conversations together with our people that are interested in putting our mills in, right? So that they know, because I know that's a lot of this egg before the chicken or chicken before the egg. You know, a lot of people don't want to put their money in to build the mill to find out there aren't buyers or they don't have the hemp. What I hear over and over again is there's a demand for the product, and that if we put these mills in, the farmers are going to grow. That is not the hard part, right? The hard part is the investment, the capital investment, and the know-how to build these facilities, and then the education, right? So Madison, I'd love to really bring those pieces together. And as we, really form our steering committees around the textile piece and the PPE, having these conversations and making those introductions so that we can get POs in place, so we can get funding and financing, so that under either an association or a private investment of one of our members, we can start growing this, because the time is now, and more conversations are coming up about bringing the manufacturing back to the United States, and not just on textiles, every piece of it.
Industrial hemp is absolutely incredible for building and things like that. It's a great application.
So Mandy, you know me, I have the shiny object syndrome really bad, as everybody knows. I can just picture it now. We're going to go get some funding. We're going to find some land. We're going to get a building, and then we're going to bring Madison in to help all of us get going and do a JV with Madison to get something going in Utah. I'm just envisioning this right now.
I heard you say it, actually, not just envision it, but I heard it out loud, recorded.
Yep.
We've done a few joint, sorry to interrupt you, Mandy, go ahead.
No, you.
Yeah. Joint venture with something like the Hemp Association. I haven't seen one person in your association who isn't somebody I want to work with, who's an innovator, who's doing things the honest way. So a joint venture with an association of people who really want to see this happen for the right reasons. At the end of the day, you have to make money, but our passion is really seeing honest hemp textiles in America, opening up a facility that will help all startups, Ryan, all businesses, whether it's hemp for industrial use, hemp for any use, come out of there and support farmers.
I think there could be a flight coming up to North Carolina, Mandy.
Come on down, guys.
Take a visit.
I can't wait. There's so many places I want to go now, and this specifically is one of them. Talk to me real quick about cost, right? You said, well, it's not all about the money. Reality is we can't be in business if we're not making money, right? But again, another question I hear is, well, the cost of hemp product is so much more. Where are we as far as cost? And when we talk about our ability to produce the fiber so much faster and so much less expensive, in the long run, that's where I see we have a drastic change in cost. The upfront expense to build the facility is the hard piece to swallow, but there's no better time than now for innovation, right?
Well, it's not, to build a facility, we're going to be able to use equipment that already exists. We're talking sub for, it's nothing impossible at all. And as far as cost, the only reason why hemp fiber is expensive is because we're bringing in overseas. So that production, that 60% in our margin is coming from shipping. Hemp has 3 times more production per acre than cotton. Hemp textiles will be cheaper than cotton textiles, last a lot longer, and give manufacturers clothing they can sell at a lower cost. It's a bit of an illusion that hemp is going to cost more than cotton. It's going to be less for sure.
Good question.
Yeah.
Right here. Out of curiosity, is your facility on or near a rail spur?
Rail spur, so like trains?
No, like
sorry, I don't know what that is.
Union Pacific, like rail cars.
Like trains.
Yes, we are near trains.
I think this is a big piece, right? And as we're growing, transportation is something that has to come on board, and it's something that needs to be considered when we think moving product from one side of the nation to the other, by the bulk, and to feed companies like Patagonia or Levi. our transportation has to be considered. And when we're building facilities, that's something that's very important. Utah, Madison has an inland port that's going in for transportation, and where we sit on I-80 is a perfect place for manufacturing and putting some of these big facilities in. And so it's somewhere where, of course, where we live, we're passionate about for a lot of reasons. But great question, Justin.
Our facility right now, Mandy, is located near all these little mills that we're trying to help and bring back to life. That's why we're located in Concord. We're next to Hard River. We're next to all these little mom and pop mills that we're really trying to bring the business and energy of Hemp. That's where we're located right now. We are about 30 minutes from Charlotte, which is a huge transportation for it.
And I think it was a good move for you. You went back to where this industry was at one time the thriving revenue source, right? For North Carolina. And so being able to go back, and you've probably eliminated a lot of costs being able to revitalize mills instead of having to go in and recreate them or rebuild them. So it makes sense, right? Now, where else are our mills, and where do you see a footprint for an ideal partnership or an ideal second or third growing locations? You know, where do you anticipate that going, or where would you, if you had a crystal ball?
Yeah. So right now, our next knitting mill is going to be located in Hard River. That's just because I know those guys really well. They're brilliant. They're brilliant weavers and knitters. So we're going to go over there, revitalize that mill that's shut down. There's about 16 employees that are waiting, and then over to Utah, New York, Northern California, all over.
Woohoo! Right
nice.
here. Justin is very well connected, great person for you to know, and maybe a great resource for any of your farms that you continue to work with when we talk about the batch tracking. But he said he'd reach out. Madison, if people want to get in touch with you, I shared your website and your name, but what else would you like to share? How do people reach out to you and get in touch with either you or anybody in your company for questions or purchasing product, so forth?
Yeah, so we send out samples. We next day samples to anybody who's in hemp fabric, seeing what real hemp fabric feels like. So even if they're just interested or looking to buy or just kind of want to feel what hemp yarn seems like, you can get in touch with Allie. Her email is sales@hemp.com. She does a great job of talking to clients, people who are interested in hemp. People are like, hey, is my t-shirt really hemp? We'll take a look at it, send it to the lab, but let you know kind of what's going on and what are the next steps. Even though we're a bulk manufacturer, we offer fabric in small bulk. So we're talking if you need a yard or one bolt, we're not going to hit you with high minimums, and we really want to see this happen. So yeah, my email or Allie's email, Madison@hemp. However we can help.
That's great.
Justin, I'm going to take you up on this. He told me he'd pay me every time I say anything good about him. But you guys, I cannot tell you how grateful I am for the people that we've been able to meet doing these lives. Madison, you're a gem, and I'm so blessed that we got in touch. And everything that you share and your passion and your goals. I heard you say something else, and I want to just point it out. This is an opportunity for you to make a lot of revenue. You didn't say that, but I know that, right? You also said out loud, you're not price gouging. You really are. This is about building the industry and putting good product out and teaching people how to be successful while we revitalize our supply chains, we create jobs, we bring economic development, we fix our carbon footprint. I mean, there's so many things that come with this, knowing that this is a long play and there is revenue. And as prices drop, as we'll see, because it becomes more accessible, that allows us for more success and more growth and scalability. And so I just want to compliment, I'm more and more impressed, and I'm thrilled to have you on. I'm thrilled to have you as part of our association. I'm excited to help you grow. And I'm really excited to share what good, honest, American-made products are and how they're distributed, and really educate. You're a woman of STEM, and you're a woman in teaching and education and engineering and manufacturing. These are all very, very valuable assets as a CEO to a business that need to be talked about. So I'm excited to have you on and share.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks for all you're doing, Mandy. And I'm extremely impressed with AHA. I've been part of multiple hemp associations, and you guys are the one that is honest and on track and doing this for all the right reasons. So I'm so happy to see you guys and everything that's happening. Absolutely what needs to happen to make this industry go forward.
Well, thank you. I want to chat really quick about our meeting yesterday. I can't believe, thank you everybody who's listening and who's been on. We had about 50 people on our call yesterday. And like Madison said, we had some rock stars in the industry and some honest people in the industry around the globe. So if anybody's interested in joining, the link is up on LinkedIn. I'll share it again here in just a minute to get registered. But every third Tuesday, we hold a Zoom call. And then we are starting to form our steering committee. So if you're really interested in the textile space or the construction industry or education or PPE, we have a lot of interest in those specific verticals. And of course, our health and wellness is always growing. This industry boomed and people ask all the time, well, why did it start with the cannabis or the health and wellness piece and not the industrial manufacturing or the textiles or construction? And I think really it's, we help the people, we help one, and we help them all, right? If we help each individual, and I think that that's an approach that was probably necessary, but now where real opportunity is moving forward with the rest of it.
And the other point to that, Mandy, is the health and wellness side is everywhere around us. And that's where the conversation really has been and still isn't in many ways.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is start steering the conversation into a much larger opportunity, we believe, and that's in the industrial side. And so health and wellness is going to be important. It's going to stay, and we're going to keep supporting it. But we also know that there's so much more on this plant and so many other areas that it's going to be beneficial that we have to expand, Yep. Since we are taking a little bit of commercial break, I'm just going to say this. Remember having him on the show?
Yes.
So I have been using this product. I had my surgery on my hand, right?
Yeah.
I have been using this on my hand, and honestly, my hand has recovered very well. In fact, the physical therapist kept saying how ahead I was than what they expected me to be. And so 2 weekends ago, I decided to put a knife through my leg. That was awesome, and had stitches. And so I just actually had my vet neighbor pulled my stitches out for me last night. But again, this is what I'm using to help cure it. So I know there's a lot of good products out there. I've just really enjoyed this one.
Yeah,
that's my commercial.
Clarification, Ryan did not decide to put a knife through his leg.
Yeah, I just took a knife. I'm like, ugh. When you have a bad day and you just want it to be diffused to something else, just not a good idea. Don't stick a knife in yourself. I was in a hurry and I stopped thinking, and I did a very good teaching lesson for my kids, because I always teach my kids about knife safety. So brilliant, like everything I taught my kids, everything. And number one, I used a dull knife. Never do that. Number two, I was cutting in the direction of myself. Never do that. And I put the knife right in my leg. The only good thing I was able to teach my kids is what not to do with a knife and how to use a tourniquet properly so you don't bleed out. So, yes.
You never cease to amaze me.
But even better, I did have to drive myself to the hospital because I was 30 minutes on top of a mountain. So I'm like, well, kids, let's pack up. We're going down to the hospital.
Oh, my God.
And it's okay because that took an hour. And then I took them back up to finish our camp out.
Your hunt?
So.
Though, right, Ryan? Because it would have been antibacterial.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Good job, Madison. Way to add that.
Good plug, Madison. Good plug.
Love that.
Good plug, yes. So.
Okay. Well, Madison, thank you very, very much. I did add Allie's contact info for anybody that's looking for samples. And if anybody needs help making contact or would like to get involved in creating this supply chain and creating these manufacturing facilities, give Madison or I a shout and we'll definitely put something together. She's very well connected and would love to, really this is the value of what we want to bring is we're going to make things happen. It's no longer just talking about it, we're doing it. And so as a friend of mine always says, we're going to fix the plane while it's flying, and it's flying back. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, guys. We'll see you all.
Thank you so much. We'll see everybody tomorrow.
You're great, Madison. Thank you.